So mounting municipal debt is threatening Eskom's financial sustainability. Only 14 out of the 72 municipalities adhere to payment obligations. Eskom warns that if nothing is done, another bailout will be needed. The power utility hopes to recoup about half of this year's municipal debt from paying customers. For more on this now, we are joined by Eskom's Chief Financial Officer, Calib Cassim, and also Salga's Head of Energy and Electricity, Nhlanhla Ngidi. Calib, let's start off with you. A very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us. How bad is the situation?
Morning, Alden, to yourself and the audience and to Mr. Ngidi. So, Alden, if we look at it, currently the total arrears owing to Eskom is 85 billion. But if I just bring it down to this financial year, in the first 5 months from April to August, it has grown by 11 billion. But more concerning from an Eskom perspective, it's not just the small municipalities. Of half that growth of 11 billion has come from metros, growing by 5 billion in arrears, and then the other coming from the smaller municipalities. This average is close to 2 billion per month, and if one extrapolates that, Aldrin, you're going to get over 20 billion growth per annum, which is clearly unsustainable from an Eskom perspective.
Yeah, and the possibility of that amount reaching 100 billion by the end of the year, close to that. And I saw another report indicating that by the 2027-2028 financial year, we could see it balloon to 200 billion.
100%, we said in scope last week that almost 100 billion by March 25, 130 billion by March 26, and by March 28, about 200 billion. And you know what's concerning for us, the positive benefit that Eskom is receiving through the debt relief of the 254 billion. If the municipal growth is not arrested, then effectively that relief is nullified through the growth of the municipal debt, which does not help with Eskom's financial sustainability going forward. We want to be in a position after the debt relief that we don't rely on the fiscus going forward, Alden.
Yeah. And Nhlanhla Ngidi also joining us for this conversation. Very good morning to you as well. Why are municipalities not paying, even though there's a debt relief incentive that government has come up with?
Thank you very much, and good morning to you, Eldrin, and thank you for having me. Good morning to the listeners at home, and also to my colleague, Mr. Cassim. I think maybe that before I answer your question, there's a principal issue that I need to address. The municipalities, SALGA always advise municipalities to pay Eskom. Eskom is a national strategic asset. So the principal issue is Eskom must be paid. And this is what municipalities are told by SALGA, and this is what municipalities also want to do. Now, going to why municipalities are not paying Eskom, there's a myriad of issues that the municipalities are going through. But first, let's just address the debt relief program that was put in place for municipalities. If you look at the conditions for the debt relief programs, I think the conditions were a little bit too optimistic and some too impractical. So we did advise the National Treasury around these conditions that, I'm going to make you an example. If a municipality must be in the debt relief program, within the next month or two, it must start paying the current account of Eskom. And that is not a practical thing, because behind the municipality not being able to pay, there's quite a lot of issues, a lot of systemic issues that needs to be addressed. Some of it is the losses, the vandalism, the non-payment that people are actually putting municipalities through. As you know, that municipalities are currently being owed about 347 billion. Another issue there, I like that, Calib is talking about the not that it's a good thing, but I like that he's talking about the debt that is coming from metros. I think, Eldrin, that should tell you something. That's the reasons for these issues are not necessarily because municipalities are basically intentionally don't want to pay Eskom. You can see that there are a lot of issues underlying that are putting even the metros, one of the best institutions that have been paying Eskom all along, now they are getting into the debt trap. That should tell you that there's a lot of issues underlying that. And some of them is, one, it's the economic conditions. The municipalities, for them to thrive, they need to also operate in an economy that is growing. And currently the economy is not growing. And also some of the issues that are out there is the funding model. The funding model is actually more than 20 years old from when local government was formed. It was assuming that municipalities will create or will make 90% of its revenue from the people or from the consumer. And we know what's happening with the consumer right now. There's high unemployment. The economy is not growing. People are not working. Some people are actually genuinely constrained financially. They are unable to pay. So there's a lot of structural and systemic changes that we need to do together with Eskom and government in order to arrest this, because we don't want this issue going to 100 billion. Yeah,
you mentioned earlier on that if you look at the conditions that need to be met by the municipalities, some of them are too optimistic. Which ones would those be? And then I'd like to hear what Calib's response is to that.
Thank you. I think one of them I've already alluded to it. I think for the municipality to stay in the debt relief program, it must religiously pay the current account. And that is a problem because a municipality cannot
does that mean pay all of the money owed to the municipality, or does it mean a portion?
No, okay. The current account is actually the monthly Eskom bill.
All right.
And municipalities are currently struggling to actually pay that. And the reason for that is there is infrastructure issues, loss issues that needs to be addressed first before a municipality can proudly say or confidently say, we are able now to address the issue of the current account. I think the conditions should have given municipalities a bit of time to fix the issues first before getting into the conditions and complying into the conditions. Because I think it's impractical to expect them overnight to actually start paying when they have been when they've been having issues and challenges paying the current account for the past few months. So we need to be more practical. We need the solutions that are going to resolve the immediate issues that are going to assist municipalities to never miss a current account of Eskom. Then deal with the other issues that have created the historical debt. So I think we need to be more practical as government.
Okay. Calib, do you think that Treasury, in outlining those conditions, was not practical? And of course, this would have been done in consultation with Eskom as well. What do you make to the explanation being given by Salga?
So I think, this is the first year literally of implementation. And I think with any implementation and mechanism, there are going to be gaps and some teething problems. I think from an Eskom perspective, together with National Treasury and Salga, we need to go revisit some of those criteria. But, Alden, 14 municipalities are compliant. And our other point from an Eskom perspective is, yes, you may not pay your full 100% current account, but pay a significant portion based on what the municipality is collecting from the customers. And I think that's an area that, working together with Salga and National Treasury, we can actually close in. Secondly, Alden, from an Eskom perspective, we look to support and work with the municipalities. We've entered into active partnering agreement with Maluti Upperfong, one of the biggest municipalities in terms of arrears. And I think this, as Nhlanhla said, there are areas where Eskom skills and expertise can be utilized with the municipalities in the benefit of collecting and dealing with the gaps in terms of the processes and systems. So from our side, we know this affects the entire country. So we need to work together between Salga, Eskom, as well as National Treasury, Alden.
Okay. I just quickly want to go, Calib, to the Mfuleni municipality experience. What lessons are drawn out of that? And are there any municipalities that Eskom is looking at again to perhaps also get their assets attached because of the municipal debt?
So yes, I think there were lots of lessons, and like we said at Scopa in with Mfuleni, there's a lot of lessons, a mechanism that has been developed. We did agree with SCOA and Scopa that a session needs to be set up with 14 other municipalities that have been identified to ensure that we don't get into a situation again where bank accounts are attached and municipal workers' salaries are not paid when they become due. That is unforeseen and a concern from our side as well. But let's avoid that situation at all costs. So again, take the lessons on board and work together.
Yeah. I think a couple of months ago, actually, Calib, your chairperson, Mteto Nyati, had said that there's a possibility of Eskom making a profit next year. Is that still possible with some of these concerns that you are raising?
So I think the benefit of the profit is really coming from the better generation performance, the significant savings in diesel costs. So we're still looking very positive to turn around Eskom from losses. However, concerning Alden 100%, if we're not recognizing the revenue that is due from us from municipalities and this escalation continues, it will impact and maybe you may get back to break even. But at this point in time where we see it, so far we're still on track, but we got to arrest these escalations going forward.
And trying to arrest these escalations going forward, and then on the other end as well is that application that Eskom has brought before NERSA for a 36% tariff hike. Your response to that?
Thank you for that question. I think, coming from the background of the industry and the regulatory industry, Eskom finds itself in a little bit of a dilemma because at this point in time, the increases that Eskom is requesting, actually, they are needed. But now, because obviously there is an economy and there's social issues, there's a need to balance that. And that becomes quite a difficult exercise to do. So we're going to have to work with Eskom and NERSA to see if can we really implement increases that are not going to cause a shock on the system, making sure that Eskom continue to become sustainable, continue to service the country, with uninterrupted electricity, but also making sure that we don't create the shock in the system, especially from the low-income, citizens that are actually currently very cash constrained, and I think they can feel the previous increases. I mean, mostly from the prepaid, electricity part of things. Those poor customers, they buy for like 300 Rand and it becomes quite a few units. And it's because obviously the kilowatt hour price has exponentially increased and it's actually causing a whole lot of social issues down there, especially from the poor people. So we need to work together. Because I think we are all government. We need to work together to see what kind of a balance mechanism can we execute to make sure that Eskom remains sustainable and also to ensure that poor people are also protected.
And Ngidi, thank you so much for your time. Salga's head of energy and electricity, as well as Calib Cassim, who is Eskom's CFO. Really appreciate your time this morning.